What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The president-elect of Paraguay says his country will stand by Taiwan under his presidency. Santiago Peña made the comments during the meeting with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen in Taipei. Peña will take office in August. He campaigned on the platform of maintaining diplomatic ties with Taiwan despite pressure from the country's powerful farming sector. Paraguay is the last South American nation to maintain formal diplomatic ties with Taipei instead of with Beijing.
Vengo así gracias a la presidenta Tsai Ing-wen y al pueblo de Taiwán por su amistad, por su historia, una historia de superación en la adversidad, pero de saber que los principios y valores no se negocian.
India's top envoy to Taiwan has welcomed plans for Taipei to open a third representative office in India. Taiwan's foreign ministry said last week that work had begun to open a new office in Mumbai. This will be Taiwan's third representative office in India after Delhi and Chennai. India and Taiwan do not have formal diplomatic ties. The de facto Indian embassy in Taiwan is the India-Taipei Association. Its head Gaurang Das told TaiwanPlus it's the right time for the move.
Well, this speaks to the growing exchanges between India and Taiwan in all spectrums of activity. Economy, trade, investment has all gone up very significantly in the last few years, and people-to-people exchanges are also increasing. So I think this is a right step to go, and I hope that this will lead to more substantive benefits for both our economies.
Taiwanese heads to the polls in January for crucial presidential and legislative elections. Many citizens living abroad will return to vote in person. But for many who didn't come back during the pandemic, their registrations may have lapsed. Bryn Thomas has more.
Long lines after a long stint abroad. These people are just a few of the 160,000 Taiwanese citizens expected to renew their household registration this year. They need to do so in order to be able to vote in the country's presidential and legislative elections in January next year, and the deadline is Thursday this week. Taiwan's presidential election is no less important for people who live outside the country.
这是台湾人自己要决定的。我在美国，我实际上看到的，真的，甚至于现在越来越多美国人愿意站出来支持台湾。
Taiwan doesn't allow absentee ballots for election security reasons. And now, in order to vote, many people find themselves rushing to jump through bureaucratic hoops before time runs out.
因为时间比较赶，我可能要赶回去，要不然我也很希望能够投票。
During the COVID-19 pandemic, Taiwan closed its borders for some 2.5 years. Taiwanese citizens could return, but would have to quarantine. For those who stayed away, their household registration status changed after 2 years out of the country. Now, many people have returned and want to change it back. But with the deadline fast approaching, they're in a race against time.
他碰到这个机会开放了可以进来，所以他回到台湾以后就很急着来把他的户籍做恢复。
The stakes are high in presidential elections, and in Taiwan, so is voter turnout. Few want to miss out on the right to cast a ballot and influence the outcome. But for those who missed the July 13th deadline, it's not the end of the world. There will be another window to get it sorted out in September. Eason Chen and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Young supporters of Taiwan's main opposition party are trying to reverse its dwindling popularity among younger voters. But as an electoral minority, how consequential will their voice be in next year's elections? Sully Yansen takes a look.
学生青年站出来，我们都挺侯友宜。
These activists are young, politically aware and enthusiastic, but they're outliers among their peers. They support Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, or KMT, but this demographic has been dwindling over the last 6 months. Ahead of Taiwan's presidential elections next year, they're trying to revive support for the party's candidate among young voters.
所以我们一起站出来，团结全台湾的青年，一起来号召全台湾青年，共同团结努力，替侯友宜市长打拼。
Hou Yu-yi is the KMT's presidential hopeful. Support for Hou from voters under 30 years old has dropped drastically, falling by around 30% in the last 6 months. That's while ruling Democratic Progressive Party candidate Lai Ching-te's polling numbers have remained relatively stable, and support for third-party candidate Ko Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party has leapt by around 35%. The China-friendly KMT governed Taiwan under authoritarian rule for over 50 years. It has historically found a strong support base in the older generations. And until late last year, younger voter support for the party was on the rise. But now, many of them are turning against Ho, who is also the mayor of New Taipei City.
如果连人口400万的新北市都顾不好，请问您要如何说服选民？您能管理好一个国家？
The KMT is working to reverse this trend, but some analysts say that despite these efforts, support from the younger demographic isn't as consequential as the party might hope.
Being a much smaller demographic, numerically, they're not the most important demographic. 30 to 39 is a bit more important because they do tend to show out in somewhat better numbers, and it also is a slightly bigger demographic.
While young KMT supporters are a political minority, they're optimistic their efforts will convince more people to support their cause.
也希望可以让这个台湾的年轻人可以真的看到国民党的改变，然后愿意来尝试来体验看国民党的论述跟我们的想法。
There are about 6 months left before the presidential election, but as poll numbers continue to fluctuate, it's impossible to predict how things might change before voting day. The KMT's plan to drum up support among Taiwan's younger voters is still in its early stages, so it may be some time before these efforts reach maturity. Andy Xue and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
The controversial safari park has had its license extended by 2 years. That's after inspection based on the latest animal welfare rules. But as Jean Ventrius reports, animal rights groups say the park needs to do more.
A passing grade. These 3 inspectors have given Liufu Village's safari park just over 71 out of 100 points, meaning it can continue exhibiting animals to visitors. This park has a history of controversy. 8 of its giraffes have died in the past decade, and in March, a baboon escaped from the park. At first, the park denied any of its baboons were missing. A hunter later shot the animal, sparking outrage across the country. Officials say that in deciding to let the park keep its animals, they expect improvements.
狒狒园区里面它缺乏那个遮阴的部分要求六福村可能要做一些对遮阴的部分来做建设。
The inspectors also want the baboons chipped, more natural light for the bird enclosure, and more space for the park's 2 rhinos. But some animal rights groups say this isn't enough.
他们其实是大型的水禽，这个问题我们过去也曾经检举，但是防治所因为一直没有进行会勘，所以我们得不到任何正面的回应。
And it isn't just the flamingos. In a joint press conference Friday, 3 groups said they've counted nearly 20 shortcomings in animal welfare, meaning a passing grade isn't going to change all minds about the park's image. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
It is one of the biggest days of the year for Taiwan's Professional Baseball League, the annual draft. It is where the latest crop of players find out who they'll be playing for in the coming season. Bing-Wang reports from Taichung.
Here in Taichung is one of the biggest events in Taiwanese baseball, the annual baseball draft. What's going to happen is teams will pick from a pool of players where they will play for that team until the foreseeable future or until the contract ends. The order is being determined by record. The worst teams pick first, while the best teams pick last. There are 6 teams in the baseball league, all of them vying for the next baseball superstar in Taiwan. Sources say Lin Ziwei is likely to be picked first in this draft. That's because of his American success. He's played for the Boston Red Sox and the Minnesota Twins, and teams are hoping that his American success will transfer into Taiwanese baseball. Howard Zhang and Bing Wang in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with images of a volcanic eruption near Iceland's capital, Reykjavik. This volcano has erupted 3 times since 2021. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.